an educational series on cybersecurity, compliance, and IT governance. Produced with the support of Freedom Technologies, Phoenix's leading managed service provider.
Kim Jones is the Director of Security Operations at Intuit and recently affiliated with the Boise State University Institute for Pervasive Cybersecurity. And again, special thanks to Ed Vasco to basically putting us in touch with him. And your time, Kim, for putting together a presentation and participating in the forum.
Glad to be here. Let me try and share screen first. Can everyone hear me? Outstanding. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk with y'all. I appreciate the invitation. I see lots of old friends and colleagues and acquaintances sitting on this meeting, so it's good to reach out and just reconnect with a lot of y'all. I also see a lot of people I don't know, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but this is the short version. May 27th of this year marked 34 years doing intelligence, risk, and security. About 11 of those in the military, 5 of those in consulting, over 13 of them sitting the chair. I was a converged CISO, so I ran the guns and the geeks. Spent some time and considered myself, and still consider myself, semi-retired since about 2016 when I gave up the big chair. I am still a professor of practice at ASU and built one of the cyber degree programs there. We've got over 250 students in it. I am affiliated faculty at Boise State. I run my own consulting company specializing in virtual CISO work as well as CISO mentorship. Right now I've got 3 Fortune 500 companies that keep me around just to bounce stuff off of every now and again, on top of my day job, which is running operations for Intuit, the TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint people. So I do start most of my presentations, if not all of my presentations, with a quick disclaimer. First, the opinions here are my own. Secondly, I have made a career knowing that I know only 2 things, and that is that my wife and son love me unconditionally, and that I can be wrong about absolutely everything else. So I'm not here to change your mind or persuade you of anything in the end of the day. I hope that at a minimum, I will help you think about our given talent problem and some of the I'll use the term divisive rhetoric that's gone on both sides of the issue, maybe a little differently, so that we can, as a profession, hopefully solve this problem rather than continue, in my opinion, to do things that are slowing us down from our ability to get in front of things. And here's a hint: despite who I am sponsored by and despite my credentials, I don't think that it's an either-or problem. I think it's a both-and problem, and that I think we need to start talking about it as a both-and solution to that problem rather than perpetuating an artificial civil war. So there are many of us on this call who've been around more than a day and a half, but I think as I go into where I see the problem and the solution, it might be worth a quick trip down memory lane and a look at some of the history as to how we got here. Because I think if we understand how we got here, it may help us in determining how we solve some of not just what the perception of the talent gap is, but truly how we bridge that gap and communicate about that gap accordingly. So I go back for in the beginning to 2003. This gentleman on this picture is a guy named Clyde Thomas. Clyde had the dubious distinction of offering me my first job as a CISO back in January of 2003. And one of the things he said to me after I'd been in the job for a while is he said to me that, you know, you've probably got the hardest job in the company. And as a mid-30 something, I didn't understand that. And I asked him why. And he said, well, think about it. You know, we've asked you to make sure that we are secure. And this was a financial services company. We've asked you to rebuild some security from some challenges that we've had. We reserve the right not to fund you. We reserve the right not to listen to you. We reserve the right not to do what you say. Yet if anything goes wrong, you're going to get fired. That's the nature of the business that we're in, and that's the nature of the job that a lot of us did, and in a lot of respects still do. Yes, it's gotten better. We all know that it's gotten better, but that risk still hangs over a lot of us as we go forward and informs our history. In that history, what a lot of us did at the time was say, okay, how do I make it better? How do I take these technology systems? How do I take this data? How do I secure it in the background and provide value to the business? We need to stop speaking geek. We need to learn how to do ROI. We need to speak these pieces and parts without losing our technical chops in the background. How do we truly integrate into the environment? And frankly, we didn't do as good a job as we would like. So somewhere around the early 2000s, we said, okay, let's take a different approach to solving this problem. And one of our first tries at this solution was the mindset that said, okay, look, information security is just another system of governance. And we have systems of governance that exist within business already. We have financial governance, we have our personal governance, we have our legal governance. So why don't we stop looking at this as a technology problem and start looking at it as a governance problem? This is when you saw us begin to move away from InfoSec and even CyberSec to this term we call information assurance. The emphasis became on policy and process and active control within the environment. And we stopped listening nor paying attention to, as well as we should have, in my opinion, to the in-depth technical breadth and depth of the problem that existed in the environment. And our hope was that if we governed this solution correctly and appropriately, just like we do in financial governance, that maybe, just maybe, this problem would go away. Well, yeah, that kind of sort of didn't work. So we took a step back as we were looking again at different incidents and different breaches and different challenges in the environment. And we said most governance solutions have some sort of regulatory umbrella or legal umbrella around them. So maybe what we need to do is we need to create more law and regulation. Now, HIPAA actually predates the 2000s, but we saw in the early 2000s with several of the earlier data breaches that were out there, the advent of different regulations regarding PCI. I'll never forget around 2004, 2005, when we saw all of the credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, JCB, and Discover, advertising together regarding how secure the credit cards were, because they were concerned about people losing faith, trust, and confidence in using credit within the environment. That for me was very telling regarding the extent of their concern. And the regulation that they created to stay ahead of laws being passed to govern them. So we saw the advent of HIPAA, we saw PCI come about, we saw SB 1386, which became the California privacy law, which began a spate of different privacy laws here in the US, as well as the overseas laws in Europe and PIPEDA, et cetera, within the environment. So again, the focus here was to regulate the environment and govern the environment versus dealing with some of the technological underpinnings, because it was too hard. It's still very hard, and it was not necessarily the easiest thing to understand for some of our business folks and the companies that we supported out there. Now, meanwhile, while this was going on, there were several of us who'd been around a day and a half who were railing at the various colleges and universities out there. We were saying, guys, your computer scientists aren't being taught security. They're coming out with no understanding of security. Or if there's a security course, it's not mandatory, it's an elective, and the course material at best, well, sucks. We really need you to get better at this if we are going to get better. We need your help in making it better. We will help you make it better. Collectively, and again, this is a broad generalization, but there's a lot of truth. This is the response that we got from the academic community. Folks, in the early 2010s, I was CISO at a company in Ohio, and I set some money aside to say, I want to partner with colleges and universities. I set a couple $100,000 aside and said, guys, you can give $100K away of it in scholarships. You can use the other $100K to actually work with your programs. All I want to do is the ability to take a look at some of your curriculum and maybe make some recommendations as to where you could tighten things up in the environment. I went to 7 different colleges and universities, including 3 in this state, and I couldn't get them to take my money. I sat on a national stage at the Avanta Global Security Conference and said, I can't get universities to take my money, and had representatives of 4 universities come up to me and said, we'll talk. And then when I sent them emails, they didn't want to talk. I couldn't get people to take my money and listen that there was a problem. This might end up contributing to some of the, shall we say, negative press and deriding that our university systems get, because yeah, they weren't listening at the time. And oh, by the way, while they weren't listening, we saw the threat continue to evolve. You know, the impression of, or the archetype of the teenager in his basement who's just futzing around on systems to see what's going on quickly evolved into, this is a lucrative business model. We can make money on this. And we saw the enemy, for lack of a better term, organizing, using good quality assurance and control, sharing information, and then monetizing what they were doing across the board. While that's going on, we began to see the evolution of protection move to the data layer. This particular slide is from a presentation I gave here in the Valley in 2008 called the 21st Century CISO. And in it, I postulated that we're moving out of the OSI layer to the point where we're going to have to granularly protect data, and data is going to be the new currency. When I gave that presentation in 2009, about half the audience thought I was crazy. And about another 25% of the audience were, yeah, I get it, but I'm not sure how we're going to do that. Versus where we are now, where you look at that statement and most of us would say, well, duh. But just remember, that was less than a decade and a half ago when this was something that was, more Carnac-y and more future telling than, where we are right now. So in the midst of us attempting to govern rather than fix the technology or deal with the technical issues, in the midst of us attempting to assign law and regulation around these issues, in the midst of colleges and universities continuing not to train people around these issues, and in the midst of not a lot of good opportunities outside of the more normal training layer, while we were using more data and while the enemy was evolving, one of the end results was this. This is a chart from 2016 regarding some of the biggest data breaches that were around over the past few years. Now, I'm going to draw your eye to the big one, that's MySpace, because you're going to see a chart coming up in a few slides, and we're going to play Let's Find MySpace on that chart as opposed to where it is now. So when you find that things aren't working, what you hope will happen is that the pendulum will shift. Now, optimally and ideally, the pendulum shifts hopefully to a more middle ground standpoint till we find out what works. Because what we did is we eschewed some of the technical aspects of cybersecurity in the late 90s and early 2000s, not realizing, or realizing it not willing to actually, come to a optimum solution that says, guys, it's going to take it all. It's going to take process, it's going to take tech, and we have to find that middle ground. But instead, we swung the pendulum 180 degrees out. And the technologists that we eschewed at the time were quick to remind us as a profession and the businesses that we supported that we got it wrong, and that we shouldn't be looking at assurance. We should be looking at cybersecurity. Be damned the fact that information assurance is holistic and cyber is a part of it. You need to look at it all, but we should be looking at cyber. We should be looking at code. We should be looking at tech. We should be looking at hacking. We should be looking at how to fix hacking. And all the things that we didn't listen to for the better part of a decade, you really need to listen to us now, because the stuff is broken and we are not prepared. Well, I greatly appreciate that argument. And there were some good things that came out of that argument that I am wholly supportive of to this day and age, some of which happened right here in the Valley of the Sun and here in the state. The cyber warfare range is just kicking it and is doing fantastic. Apprenti began to offer apprenticeships in cybersecurity. We were one of the states that helped found that program for them. SANS began to actually pick up the depth and breadth of its technical training within the environment to offer in-depth technological training for people, within cybersecurity. So we actually did see and have seen and continue to see some very good things come out of that shift, but they weren't all necessarily good, and there were some other things that were happening in the background. So let me shift again and go back to universities. So in the midst of this swing, the universities had to come to insert deity here, and they realized that there was depth, breadth, and demand for what we were asking for and had been asking for over a decade and a half. So many small universities and some larger universities that had been poking at security programs. I don't know why I'm gesturing with my hands. I have my video off, but we're poking at security programs, began to put in formalized cybersecurity degree programs. What you're seeing here are some programs that are actually quite good, but you also have lots of colleges and universities that have put together programs to various depth, various breadth, various experience, various capability, and various quality throughout the environment to attempt to capture the market. Still, there was still some backlash against universities, not just for the practicality of the program, because yes, many of these programs said, we are cyber. I have one. To get a cyber concentration, you must take the one cybersecurity elective within the ComSci program that is still out of date, versus putting together, like these institutes have, some very, very good and comprehensive programs. So, and oh, by the way, because universities were not quick to answer the questions and comments that we had earlier, there was still a heavy backlash against, well, we don't need to actually go to a 4-year university to understand cyber. So universities started to say, well, can we offer certain programs that don't require them to go 4 years? So in addition to some of the junior colleges offering some very good programs in some of the junior colleges that are out there, some of the 4-year colleges and universities began to offer boot camp, where you can apparently learn to be me instead of taking 10 to 30 years if you just take 6 months and go to these programs that are being offered by the various universities. While this was going on, we still had a problem with reconciling what it means and what skill sets and capabilities you needed to become an entry-level cybersecurity professional. We've all seen the advertisements out there that say, yeah, I need a brand new entry-level professional who has enough experience and knowledge that it would have taken 2 to 3 years for any other individual to get. Yeah, by the way, we're still seeing entry levels that are just requiring degrees without actually looking at the skill sets and capabilities and mapping them to certifications. We've not won the arguments out there regarding hiring and HR personnel and job descriptions to give folks who haven't come up and gotten their sheepskin the appropriate opportunity to take an entry level gig when, yes, they are absolutely more than qualified. The challenge that we have, in my opinion, because many of those organizations do have cyber professionals who have been around 5 to 10 years or more, who are helping dictate those actual job descriptions, is we're losing the battle with HR because we haven't given HR yet a consistent description of what it means to be a professional, what the skills are needed, so that we can get the right people priced at the right opportunity and give them an opportunity to advance within the organizations. I have actually had conversations with several of my peers, current and former, that said, yeah, I know this job description doesn't make any sense, but if I actually give them what I need, just what I need, they're not going to let me pay the person what they deserve and what I need to pay them in order to get them. So because we haven't created that level of consistent message as a profession in the organization, we're left to fight, in pockets of onesies and twosies and threesies to try and make it better. And if you take a look at the job descriptions we're seeing out there, for the most part, we're really kind of losing that battle right now. Then there's this little problem called diversity. Folks, I love the job I'm in and the work that I do. I wouldn't have done it as long as I have if I didn't. And I say the same for all of you. I tell people regularly there are easier ways to make a living in technology, lots easier ways to make a living in technology. We all know this to be true. This is a job of passion, and we are supposedly a meritocracy. Everyone I've talked to says, I really don't care what race, creed, color, gender, sexual preference, sexual orientation that you are. Do you love hard work? Do you love whipping up on bad guys? Come play with me. I need you, and I'll treat you right. Yet in that environment, women are still 11% of our profession and decreasing. In that environment, Hispanics and African Americans, of male or female, are less than 12% combined. And I'm a member of both demographics within the environment. So in this meritocracy that we have, we are still predominantly made up of older, Caucasian males. And I don't say that to, degrade all of my male friends that are sitting on this call and others, but we're not walking the talk in terms of what we're doing. And I bring that up for this reason. I have been the African American diversity, or the diversity period, at the executive level in most of the companies that I've been CISO at, and in most of the companies I've worked at, with the present company I'm in being excluded from that. Okay. I have been in environments where, despite there supposedly being equity amongst genders and amongst races, the stats aren't there. And anything that makes you different from what they expect is used as an excuse not to hire you. So why in that sort of environment do I tell a college-aged African-American female who can afford to go to college that she shouldn't go to college if she wants a degree in cyber? Yes, do we create opportunities for those who can't afford to college to give them a leg up? Absolutely. But if we're sitting there giving advice and counsel to someone that says, you're going to be okay if you don't go to college in the current environment that we have not been able to change yet, are we just setting that person up for failure when we don't have to? And folks, I'm not making that scenario up. I regularly do mentorship with those college-age kids, people transitioning, military transitions, etc. And the amount of rhetoric that's out there, to include people I regularly recommend don't go to college because there are other avenues available to them. But the amount of generic rhetoric out there and the passion that it's used in is clouding our ability to give a clear message and realize some of the harsh realities that exist out there. And again, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So all of this to say, I think that the rhetoric around there are different paths, which is very, very true, has become at least an intense civil war, if not a religious battle. On the one hand, we have lots of valid voices sitting out there saying that, yes, the gap is self-inflicted. Yes, there are other ways other than college, though there are other things you can do in college, and you should go to college in some cases, even if you don't want to go management. And that real world experience should be the only bar. Guys, my dad marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis back in the day. I understand what should happen, but there's also a lot of truth as to what the reality is regarding the situation regarding diversity and inclusion out there. On the other end, you have folks who are playing catch up on the college end, or folks who actually, work within college systems, saying that college has improved critical thinking skills, which yes, can be true because it gives you more context. College does provide an equitable measurement out there. If I don't have a measurement regarding what the KSA should be, what advancements should be, what's required in the environment, and how you acquire these skills, college may give me some method of doing that everyone understands. And college offers some structured skill-based opportunities out there. I do not know how things are in the cyber ranges that exist now. And I think the cyber ranges, which I have been an avid supporter of, both personally, vocally, and financially within the environment, there were, the last time that I dug into this several years ago, it's like, great, they're great opportunities. But I get resumes that says, I've spent the past 90 hours at the cyber warfare range this month. Great, what have you learned? What skills do you have? And how can I measure that based upon what you're telling me? And if that's something that we haven't fixed within the environment, how do I offer some sort of structured skill set development and structured skill set measurement within some of the actions and opportunities that we have? Ditto in terms of apprenticeships. I think apprenticeships are absolutely great, but I'm not seeing a lot of churn or availability of apprenticeships by the same folks who are advocating that this is a method to go. Because working an apprenticeship is hard for not just the apprentice, but the company that is actually providing that work. Not saying, again, it's a bad thing. It's not either or. It's just we've got to make sure we get better at this. All of this noise, and it is noise, has created churn amongst those who are looking to try and get into the profession about what skills they need to go after. Do they or don't they need to go to college? Is there more to cyber than just being a hacker working on the red team? Yes, I've been told that, if I just do these things, I can get training in the various companies that I go to. But oh, by the way, there are not a lot of companies out there who offer extensive, exhaustive training programs that are designed for your advancement. So what? You mean I have to pay for it myself? And I'm not necessarily certain that that's going to allow me to advance. There's still some unstructured in some of the ranges. College is still theoretical in some places. I've graduated the boot camp that I was told would actually get me where I need to go, but I still can't find a job. I'm not being allowed to advance here, so I need to move to another company to get paid more. This is the noise that's out there in the environment now. You've all seen it. You all know it. We all understand it. But the result of that noise is that the number of job openings in cyber is still high, despite the fact that the pipelines from the plethora of methods, the boot camps, the apprenticeships, the certification programs, and yes, the universities are at an all-time high. And while we can't seem to settle upon matching what we are telling people to do to enter the career with the job description that allows them to be qualified and give them advancement opportunities, this landscape is getting worse. Now, I said we were going to play Find MySpace later. Well, I'll save you the time. There it is. From the largest one in 2016 to a small and shrinking blip on the radar by 2020 and 2021. I printed this 2 days ago, so this chart is up to date as of 2 days ago from from informationisbeautiful.com or .net if I remember correctly. So I want to throw out some random thoughts here. And again, I understand that there's a bit of a rant, but I think it's important that we understand and at least come face to face with this if we want to make it better. And I rant in groups like this because I believe that everyone here genuinely and sincerely wants to make it better. And I equally believe, as a semi-retired old fart, that we are standing in our own way as a profession. So some random thoughts to kick around and maybe move the needle 5% one way or another. First random thought is I am the first person to tell you reality absolutely matters. I need to get out of theory and I need to get some reality and I need to make reality work. But I really don't care how you get it. We need to stop assuming or advocating, pontificating, or suggesting that one approach is better than the other. Okay. The degree program that I built at ASU West out here has a mandatory requirement, not just you have to go get, you should go get an internship before you leave. You can't graduate unless you have real world experience. So you have to have structured internships available doing real work with real objectives in security in real companies, or you don't graduate, period. And if working alongside y'all doing real work, isn't considered a realistic experience because they're not spending time at the cyber warfare range, I'd question that. The labs and the warfare ranges are definitely real work if they're structured appropriately and can generate the KSAs. And if you've got real world people in the classroom teaching real systems and real availability, I'm really not sure why that classroom experience is less than valid than others that are out there. Shout out to Christy Westfall. If she's not on here, she teaches security operations in my program out West. She does it for real. And she's been doing it for real for years. I would stack what she's doing up against a lot of what other folks are doing in less structured environments because she's that good. Diversity means different challenges and realities for people. So we need to stop assuming that all opportunities are equal and that the solution that you personally prefer is going to work for everyone. It may be the only solution that's available. But again, that situation where I tell you where I had a college age, African-American female who could afford college. She had a 2-year scholarship, who is being steered away from a college education because someone thought it was a waste of time. and I'm sitting there saying, I'm a 55-year-old African-American male, you're going to have it as hard, if not harder than I do, because of both the color of your skin and your gender. And you're going to give people a reason not to hire you because, yes, I understand that that shouldn't be the reason, but you're going to give them an excuse not to hire you because you're going to walk away and somebody told you this in my profession. Yeah, that kind of bugs me. And again, I know I'm ranting a bit now. Yeah. I will be the first person to tell you that process is not going to solve the problem and that you can't solve the problem with this process. We've got to get to the tech. We've got to do all the things that Eric said earlier in his briefing if we're going to make this right and make this better. But folks, it's not either or, it's both and. The parts need one another. We've got to stop assuming that one thing versus the other is going to fix it. So if we're back to teaching great technologists who suck at process and suck at risk management, guys, I was here in 1997. We've done this before. Why are we doing it again? You got to teach both. You've got to arm people with both. You've got to prepare them that there's a need for both. Or once again, we're going to fail. And once again, the pendulum's going to swing and it's not going to get any better. Skills maps, which don't include soft skills, are incomplete. I'm sorry. And when I'm in every CISO job that I've had, and I'll go to my last one when I was in Ohio at one of the largest debit and credit processors in the world, my CEO would wander the halls, and when he would see someone have a security question, he would grab the first person on my team that he could see. And that was occasionally my new hire and my new college grad. So I've got my 22, 23-year-old being asked a direct question by the CEO. They would need to understand how to communicate and explain it in executivese, which I've always called small words, big fonts, and lots of pictures, how to do so in a way that answers the question, and how not to overcommit my team on something that we couldn't do. My new grads had about 6 months to figure that out, but my CEO and every CEO I've ever worked for knew that that is part and parcel of doing the gig. If we're teaching people that they can either A, hide alone somewhere and not have to interface with people, or B, that it's okay to tell people, well, you just basically suck, and then wonder why they're not getting promoted, we're selling snake oil. We're actually lying to people. I'm sorry, Jamie Foxx and Channing Tatum, White House down. Jamie Foxx is the president. Stop lying to kids. Okay, guys, we're lying to people. Okay. It's not the first thing they need to know, but we can't keep dismissing that problem. Okay. Critical thinking matters, and critical thinking requires context. Okay. The stuff that you learn and the ash and trash that you learn in a 4-year degree that has nothing to do with what you're majoring in exists for one reason, folks. It is to give you context outside of your primary source of information, or your primary career, rather. Context aids in critical thinking. That is the only reason it's there. If you understand history, if you understand poli-sci, if you understand all of those pieces and parts, you can become a better critical thinker. And when I was an intel officer, I spent 3 months learning how the bad guy fought before I learned how to defend as the good guy. And I didn't just learn about tank formations and independent tank battalions. I learned about the culture, the political system, etc., so I could make better decisions as an analyst. I don't care if you don't go to a 4-year college to get that level of context, but we need to make sure you get it elsewhere. I still read a book a month in an area, nonfiction, in an area that's not my primary discipline, to make sure that I don't lose context on geopolitical, social issues, economic issues, environmental issues, and other contextual issues that may have an impact on how my business does what it does, so that I can become a better asset and provide better value in doing what I do within the environment. And the last piece for me is we need to stop complaining and start getting involved. It's, I liken this to why I vote. I mentioned that my dad did march across Edmund Pettus Bridge with John Lewis and Martin Luther King way back in the day. My dad used to say, and I used to say, I vote to exercise my right to complain, because bad candidates, bad issues, regardless of party, regardless of leaning, notwithstanding. Okay. It really bugs me when someone actually says, well, this is bad and that's bad. And I say that, yeah, you're right. Did you vote? Hell no, I didn't vote. Then you've lost your right to complain. The only way we make it better is if we show up. And that means, are you spending it? And that's not just throwing around money. We not just need money, we need your time. That means showing up at the labs if that's the way you want to go. It means teaching the kids at the undergraduate or graduate or the high school level. It means volunteering for the activities that are out there. It means, hey, you're unhappy with the college programs? Why aren't you teaching junior college? You got a master's degree? Why aren't you teaching undergrad? Universities are clamoring for you and you're not showing up right now, right this second. I know that one of the other colleges in Arizona State has a $5 billion grant to do realistic training for data scientists, IT professionals, and security professionals. They are clamoring, asking for our help. They have one cybersecurity professional who has volunteered to help, and you're speaking to him. They are getting no response. How are we going to make it better if we don't show up? So rather than getting into the religious wars we've been having, let's figure out the paths that we want, understand that all paths have validity, and let's make it better, guys. That's all I'm suggesting. So a couple quick things, because I know I'm running out of time, and I apologize for ranting too long. I do believe there's some things that we need to do as a profession. I do believe that in your organizations, training dollars aren't optional. Fight for them, because there aren't a lot of companies that really do decent training or pay for training. And I've actually given up programs to keep training. But when you train with specific interdisciplinary objectives versus just, I want to go take this course, or I want to go to DEF CON, or I want to go to RSA. Great. What are you getting out of it? How is it making you better? How is it making the company better, so that I can truly progress the profession? Now, we need to be better collectively as a profession in advocating skills-based promotion paths and job descriptions. That's the hard hurdle, but we've made it harder on ourselves because we haven't defined what good looks like. 800-141 gets us closer, yes, but we haven't defined what good looks like, how we measure and metric it, and how we get there. When we win that, we will stop seeing the idiotic job descriptions that we're dealing with, and we will truly create multiple paths that create the opportunities that we're looking for within our environment. And again, please get involved. I don't care where. It doesn't have to be with universities. Guys, I've got students clamoring for internship opportunities right now who are at risk of not graduating because we don't have internships opportunities. And I've got 56 students who are looking for them for next year. So, by the way, if you're interested, I would love to hear from you and put you in touch with the people who are doing it. You're saying you need bodies. You're saying you need skills. These kids are hungry and they're pretty good. And again, wrapping it up, I don't think the talent gap is artificial. I think it's inappropriately defined. I think we haven't defined what talent is needed at what level, because we haven't unified as a profession on what it definitively takes to either enter as well as advance, and how we get there. If we do that, we can not only close the talent gap, we could win the HR battles, and we could actually make some of these problems go away and deal with the problems that we need regarding fighting bad guys. And lastly, pontification over collaboration as a profession is hurting us. It's clouding what we need to do for levels of entry. There are multiple paths. There are multiple challenges. There are multiple benefits. One of the things I was blessed at ASU, despite being on faculty, was my job was to figure out how to make it better for students. I have recommended, why are you going to take a 4-year degree? Go take this certification and get a job. Why are you going to take this 4-year degree? Go to the 2-year college and do this, take these classes and go get a job. Or, yeah, the shift that you're making is too hard. You probably need to go back to school for 4 years. Or you don't need to do any of that. Let's just help rewrite your resume and get you plugged in. There are multiple pathways, multiple challenges, multiple benefits, and multiple realities out there. Let's stop pontificating and banging the gavel for personal preference, and embrace all of these avenues and all of these realities and make it better. Because until we do, we are hurting ourselves and slowing our ability to fix. I'm going to get off my high horse. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop rambling. I see there are tons of comments that are coming in. This is my contact data. There are several of you who have multiple different contacts for me because I've got like 9 emails and I've got 3 phone numbers. This is the one that's affiliated with faculty at Boise for me. You can reach out to me at LinkedIn. If you want to yell at me, scream at me, have a conversation, or just hang out, I'm happy to do all of the above. And with that, I think, John, I have left time for questions. If so, I will stop sharing my screen and get into the chat windows. Other questions I'm seeing, let me see. I'm trying to quickly go through comments here. It is truly great to catch up with everyone. There is one question here. For folks who develop their career on the technical side, do you have suggestions on how to foster the process-related skills? There are a handful, well, there are a handful of things that are out there. There are probably more than I'm going to mention, so I'm riffing top of head. There are different classes that are process focused and process oriented right now, and there are different certs that head in that direction. The old SISM cert, if you're qualified, used to head in that direction. I used to teach the local SISM course. SANS is beginning to offer management type courses. It's MGT series. MGT 514 is security planning, operations, and leadership, if I remember correctly. I say that because I'm actually certifying to instruct that, but there are different courses that are out there right now that actually begin to get into process and governance. I do know that for those who know, I also know, if I remember correctly, at Boise, there is a governance course being developed. I don't know if it will be developed as a one-off or not. I know it's being developed because I'm one of the guys developing it, but if there's demand for it as a one-off, that might also be an option as well. That's a hint for you, Ed.
Yeah, I heard.
So that's top of head. If there are specifics, again, I'm reachable on LinkedIn. My data's here, and I'm happy. Like I said, I talk to folks at least once a week in terms of career pathing, etc. I'm happy to do some digging with whomever asked the question one-on-one. Just link with me on LinkedIn or catch me via the data I had up earlier, and I'm happy to talk to you and see if I can't find some other stuff. That was just top of head.
So Kim, just a final quick question. This is John Nash. Finally, we did record the second session. We couldn't do the first out of deference to the FBI, but do you mind if we post that on our YouTube channel?
You are absolutely welcome to do so. Just send me the link, and if you need copies of the slides, I'll PDF them and send them to you.
Sounds great. That's always helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I try. Speaking of preaching and pontification, I actually try and get stuff out there so it can be used and spread the wealth. So send me the link, and if you need the slides, let me know, and I'll PDF and send them to you.
Sounds great. Thank you.